In this video, I'll demonstrate the use of self-joins. So how these work, I'm going to the bookstore database where we have a table called customers. And if we open up that table, we have customer num as our primary key. But over to the right, I have a column referred. And what it should say is referred by. So in other words, when I look at this record, Tammy Gianna has this number 1003. Well, that number represents Leela Smith. And of course, down here on Jorge Perez, he is 1003. Again, Leela Smith. So in other words, Leela Smith has referred these two employees. Nicholas in the row or 1013 was referred by Messiah Cruz at 1006. So this is called a self-join, where the primary key of a table ends up being a foreign key in the same table. Very often you'll have this in an employees table where you have employee IDs. Well, then who is the manager of that employee? Well, over here under manager, I'll have another employee ID that represents the manager of these employees. So again, that's a self-join. So now when I want to do a query and say, for instance, show me all the customers that were referenced by other customers or referred by other customers. So let's take a look at our script. Here's what it looks like, and I'm putting it into some English words so we can kind of tell what's going on. But basically, I'm going to concatenate the first with a space in the last name. All right, no big deal. So I have right here r.firstname and r.lastname. And then this is a column alias, is customer who refers. And maybe I'll move this one down so it's easier to see. And now I'm concatenating the customer last name and first name, referred. Now here's the interesting part. I want to join a table to itself. So basically I'm saying as customers, C, join customers as R. And again, R and C are just alias names, but one's for the customer and one's for referred. Now, what am I doing right here? On C.referred. And by the way, I have to use on. I can't use using anymore because I have two different column names. So, but I'm saying C, the customer.referred equal R, the customer.num. Okay, so it gets a little confusing, but basically we're going to start with the customers table and look at the referred column. Okay, so I run to the customers. I go through the referred column until I find a value. Here it is. So now this is the customer. So C last name and C first name is my customer. All right, and the referred is going to be this person, right? Because this is the table with referred. So Leela and Smith will be the R. R first name, R last name. So in other words, I'm saying Leela Smith, because that's the R table, referred, and it's going to return Tammy. So we'll go ahead and run that. And you can see down here that Leela Smith, that's what the R table was referred, Tammy and Jorge, and then one other person, Jennifer Smith, down here. So one more time, what happened is it ran through and says, okay, here's my customer table. Grab that referred. Okay, so this is the C table, and now I'm going to go up here and combine it with the R table. So this referred equals that customer number. So now this is my R table. So looking back, R dot first and last name was Leela Smith. C dot first and last name is Tammy and Jorge. So let's just switch it up a little bit. This is basically, let me move this down, the exact same query. Okay, so R first name, last name, C last name, first name, so all the same. I did change some of this language though, because customer C join customers are on. Here's the only difference. Instead of C.referred up above, I did C.customernum equals L or R.referred down here. So I just switched up my on clause a little bit. So what's that doing for me? Well, basically now I'm going for the customer num and trying to match it up with the referred column. Where up here I was looking at the referred column and matching it with the customer num. When I run this, the result's a little bit different. I mean, I still get the same results, but the order is different. And that now I have Tammy was referred by, and that's why I changed that language. It was referred by Leila Smith. Jorge was referred by. So what's going on behind the scenes is I'm starting with the customer number, and that becomes the customer table. And then when it matches a referred, that becomes the referred table. So here we go. I run down here, and here's a customer number. And so this becomes my customer table. Now, does this number match anything? Yes, it matches this referred column of the referred table. So now Leila becomes the C person, and this becomes the R person, okay? Because I started looking at the customer num, it matches this referred. So when I come back here, R is now Tammy. So I get Tammy Gianna was referred by, and then of course the customer table was Leila Smith, and it was because I started by looking at this table starting with the customer number. So again, bump bump bump, oh, here's a customer number that has a match with the referred column. So here's my customer table, this is the referred table. Vice versa up here, I started with the customer table looking in the referred column. So I went over here, dunk dunk dunk, boop, there's a match. This is my customer table, and the referred table ended up being the match up here with Leila Smith. So I know it's a little confusing, and sometimes I have to play with that myself, but just pay attention to what you're matching on and what table is what in that case. And a lot of times I will add the English language in here with my statement, so it just, especially in this particular table, it becomes clear that Leila referred Tammy, or when I run the second one, I can tell that Tammy was referred by Leila. And you'd run into this same situation with an employee table. Let me go ahead, open up my test employee table, although I don't have a self-join in here. But if I did, I could have a column called manager, and it would use as a foreign key the primary key from its own table. But you can run a query two different ways. I can say this person is the boss of all these people, or I could say all of these people are being managed by this person. So it's just two different ways of looking at the data with basically getting the same result, and a lot of it's going to determine how you do your on clause.